I saw this on the Big 12. This is from Saturday Down South. I don't know how serious of a site this really is. Obviously, it's going to be SEC-centric. But I do recognize the name Matt Hayes, who's writing for Saturday Down South, as somebody that's been a legitimate college football journalist for a while. I don't understand how people still get this story so wrong. So the theory here is, I'll just start with the title of the story. It says, why it makes sense for everybody if Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC ASAP. So the theory here is the Big 12 should let Texas and Oklahoma leave earlier than 2025 with a mitigated buyout, possibly as soon as next year, and in return, the SEC clears the way for the Big 12 to retain its A5 or Power 5 status. Now, if you're not somebody that's paid real close attention to this, that I can see how, you would say that makes some sense. And, I mean, he goes on to quote, industry sources here. Where's my industry source? It's in the Big 12's best interest, and they know it, another industry source says. They're not happy with Texas and OU, but at the end of the day, they have to retain that A5 status. That's everything. No, it's not. If we expand the playoff and it goes the way that the initial proposal was for the college football playoff to get to 12, Autonomy 5 status, Power 5 status does not matter because the top 6 conference champions get automatic entry. That doesn't say Power 5 conference champions get automatic entry. That says the top 6 conferences, or the top 6 conference champions get in. That renders that fairly meaningless in terms of getting access to the college football playoff. And that's why the conversation always was, hey, the Big 12, Pete Thamel's theory, hey, the Big 12, go kneecap the Mountain West, go kneecap the AAC so that you can guarantee that you would be one of those 6 every single year. You'd be guaranteeing basically that you're the 5th best conference, and every year your champion is going to get in, barring some crazy unforeseen circumstance. Your champ is going to get into the playoff every single year. I mean, I guess I could if the idea was going to be, hey, it's only going to be an 8-team playoff and then only Power 5 conference champs get in, but we've just seen within the last 2 weeks the reporting from Ralph Russo of the Associated Press that an 8-team playoff is done. That's basically out. That goose is cooked. That ship has sailed. Dennis Dodd also echoed that, and maybe I'm getting them mixed up, but between those two, they had the reporting on that. 8-team playoff out, likely headed for a 12-team playoff, and potentially by December was really the timeline on that where they could get it all ironed out and figured out. And as I've discussed already here, I think the impetus is there for it to happen sooner rather than later because this season has served as a really nice reminder to the ACC and Pac-12 as to how vulnerable they are and how much more beneficial a world it would be if it's a 12-team playoff because they would at least still be in the conversation now. People would still be talking more about Oregon, and people would be talking about, I guess, whoever, take your pick in the ACC, but they would at least have a shot to get somebody in there, which now they have none at all. Because they're so contingent, relying on Clemson, and Clemson has 2 losses and has not looked good in any way, shape, or form this season. So it's been like a dose of reality for them. So this should be a reminder, like some warning shots, like, oh yeah, that's right. I know we didn't like the SEC, we were leery of this, but actually we do need a 12-team playoff. And the Big Ten, they have 5 teams right now that could be in the discussion for the playoff if it's a 12-team playoff. Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa. So yeah, for all these leagues, it's going to be beneficial for them to do that. So I think we are going towards that. And unless something drastically changes where it's not going to just be the top 6, but there's really no way that happens because everybody here at the table has a vote, and you're not going to get, reportedly earlier it was for the 8-team playoff, you had the SEC and Notre Dame being interested in that, but you weren't going to get that vote from everybody else, and it has to be unanimous, so nobody's giving in. So the actual realities and logistics of this would indicate that the Big 12 would still be totally fine. And the other thing that this gets wrong, and this just drives me up a wall, is it says, from Matt Hayes, another reason the Big 12 is willing to deal, there's nothing they can do about Texas and OU leaving. Why not get what they need long-term before it happens instead of being left with nothing? This idea, and then it says they could force Texas and OU to stay to 2025 and not get a dime. This was it. They could force Texas and OU to stay until 2025 and not get a dime, or they could deal and get buyout money and long-term stability. Incorrect. Incorrect. Everybody gets this wrong, and it's infuriating. Texas and Oklahoma leaving the conference, no matter when it happens, whether it's before the end of the grant of rights or after the grant of rights, they will still owe 2 years' revenue to the league. That's where that $80 million approximately number comes from. Texas and Oklahoma owe the Big 12 $80 million apiece, whether they leave in 2023, tomorrow, or 2025 when the grant of rights is done. That money is still owed because you're still leaving the conference. The grant of rights is about whether or not the Big 12 would get the money from Texas and Oklahoma's home games that are on TV. So if they were to leave early, the Big 12 can get the money, the TV revenue from Oklahoma and Texas home football games through 2025 and get the $80 million a pop. So there is not reason in any way, shape, or form for the Big 12 to be doing this. And I would love to know who this industry source is that says that's in the Big 12's best interest. It's just really frustrating, like guys that should know these things and just propagate this now on an SEC site to where, you're going to have SEC folks running around in my YouTube channel comments now being like, hey, makes sense. Get them in the SEC. They want to mitigate a buyout. Stop it with this. Stop it. Like, it's not that hard to figure out. They may well leave early, but they're going to pay the price. And everybody that's left early in all of these realignment scenarios has paid more. There is a tax to leave early. So we're talking about more than the $80 million. Laughable. This is laughable. Why does this still come out? Realignment started 3 months ago. We've had 3 months to figure all this out. Texas and Oklahoma need to cut that big check. And Texas and Oklahoma like to run around like they've been subsidizing the entire league for so long because they have all this money and they make all this money. So why is it such a big deal to cut this check? They want to leave so bad. Why is it such a big deal to cut this check? Thought you guys had the money. Thought you guys were out on the yacht. Thought this was like Leonardo DiCaprio throwing money on his boat in Wolf of Wall Street and calling them fun coupons. I thought that's what Texas and OU had. Why don't you guys just cut the check instead of, having your cronies write these stories about why it would make sense for everybody to cut a deal to get them out? You're mighty Texas and mighty Oklahoma. Make it happen. And tell Saturday Down South about it while it's going on, too.